everybody, and thank you for joining me for this webinar on DocsPlus and dyslexia. My name is Gemma. I'm a Customer Experience Manager at Crick Software. So I manage one of our customer experience teams to support our customers in getting the most out of our software. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues, Sian and Katie, and they'll be answering your questions throughout the webinar. For today, we've got about 30 minutes. And during that time, we're going to look at some features that students can use to help them to capture and organise their ideas before they start writing. We'll be looking at how DocsPlus supports spelling and boosts students' writing independence. And we'll be talking about some different strategies for using DocsPlus to aid poor working memory. Okay. So I mentioned that you can ask questions throughout the webinar for Sian and Katie to answer. So you can do that in Zoom using the Q&A function. If you're not too familiar with Zoom, it's the button with the two speech bubbles, and that will then let you type any questions for Sian and Katie to answer. Thank you, everybody who's already completed the poll. It's really helpful to know who's joining me today. I'll leave that open a little bit longer to give everybody time to fill that in. If you do have questions, do make sure to ask them. But if you couldn't join us today live, perhaps you're watching the recording now, or you're trying something out from this webinar and you have questions, or you want to talk a bit more about how best to use DocsPlus, please do get in touch. You can give us a call on one of the office numbers just here. You can email the customer experience team at training@cricksoft.com. And there's lots of help and advice available on our website as well. And I'll show you a few key areas towards the end of the session. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be making that recording available to everybody who registered in the next couple of days. And we'll also make the recordings available on our Facebook pages. Okay, so thank you everybody for completing that poll. I'm just going to end that one now and launch another one to find out a little bit more about the needs of the students that you're working with, and potentially how DocsPlus can help with that. So you can choose more than one option in this new poll, so do pick any that apply. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so now to have a read through those options and complete the poll. And I can already see responses coming in. That's fantastic. Great to see. I'm just going to make sure everybody has time to fill that in. Okay. Excellent. So I'll leave that open just a little bit longer in case a couple of people are just thinking about which options to choose. It does look like people are interested in a whole range of ways to support students using DocsPlus. So we will be touching on a little bit of everything there, particularly planning and organising ideas, accuracy of spelling, vocabulary. I can see a couple of people chose other. It'd be great if you could put the other ways, the other literacy challenges your students are struggling with in the Q&A, and perhaps we can help you a little bit more either through the Q&A or perhaps in some other meetings. Okay, a couple of final things before we dive into DocsPlus. So just so you're aware, I'm using the UK version of DocsPlus. So any voices, any spellings, they will be the English versions. And we'll be looking at how DocsPlus works on Windows or Mac PC. So that might be a laptop or a desktop computer. And we'll be looking at the DocsPlus app for iPads and Chromebooks. So whichever device your students are using to access DocsPlus, we will be covering that today. Okay, so we're going to start off with the PC, so Windows and Mac version of DocsPlus. So I've just opened up a new window there. If you've opened up DocsPlus before, you'll know that before we see this screen, the document, we do have the quick start menu. So to get to this screen, you would click New Document, and you would then see the same thing I've got open at the moment. Okay, so for those of you who aren't too familiar with DocsPlus, there are a few key areas to be aware of, and we'll be looking at all of these today. So there's the document, the word processor, where I am at the moment, with the support tools that students can use to help with their writing. There's the Doc Reader, which helps to make Microsoft Word and PDF documents more accessible with DocsPlus's speech support. There's the Workspace, which is a really nice, simple to use visual organizer, great for those of you thinking about planning and organizing ideas. It's a fantastic tool for that. And then there are the word bars, which offer key subject vocabulary, which students can access and use as part of their writing. Today, we're going to start by looking at the Doc Reader. So as I mentioned, we're going to open up a either Microsoft Word or PDF document in DocsPlus using the Doc Reader. And to do that, the first thing I need to do is go to the folder icon up in the top left of the screen. And that will take you to the home location for your file explorer. So this could be somewhere locally on your computer. It might be on a server, in a server folder, or it could be cloud storage. That depends on how you've set things up in your school. Okay. So we've got a couple of PDF and Microsoft Word documents here, and today we're going to focus on a couple of subjects. We're going to look at Romeo and Juliet, and we're going to look at migration in terms of geography. So we'll start off with Romeo and Juliet, and I'm going to open this full play document. It's a Microsoft Word document, and I'll double click to open that up. With Microsoft Word documents, we have another option. So we can either open that up in the DocsPlus document to edit it, to make changes to it, in which case we'd choose editing. But we want to open it up in the Doc Reader, so we're going to choose reading. Okay. So here we have the play, Romeo and Juliet. If I scroll down a little, I can scroll through the whole play here. Okay. I can also use the arrows up here in the top left to move between pages in this document, or I could type in the page text box and jump to a specific page. So it's easy to navigate through the document. If I was looking for a particular quote, maybe, I can also use this find icon to jump straight to a key piece of vocabulary. Okay, so we'll just pop back to the first page in the document and scroll down a little. So Shakespeare includes quite complex vocabulary, quite archaic. It can be challenging for any student to understand the meaning behind it. And where we might struggle with key vocabulary, we can use DocsPlus to help us. So I'm going to highlight misadventured piteous just here. So some tricky words. And then I can go to the read button up at the top of the screen in my top toolbar.
Misadventured piteous.
And I can then hear those words read out. Okay. It might be that we want to hear a whole sentence read out. So we could highlight this sentence here. And again, go to our read button.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean.
Or we could highlight the whole paragraph. And this can really help students to understand the meaning behind the text. They're not focusing on deciphering individual words. We're getting a better feel for the rhythm of the text, the tone, and the meaning. Okay. So this is what the Doc Reader looks like on PC. And it's quite a flexible tool, so we can open up Microsoft Word or PDF documents. If, for example, we were going to move on to Act 1, Scene 1, and we've got a PowerPoint that introduces a few key elements, perhaps we've got some tasks to start thinking about themes that might come up. We've got some key quotes perhaps in there. We can then save that PowerPoint as a PDF and share that with students so that they can then open that in the Doc Reader. They can then use the speech support where needed, but they can also go backwards and forwards between slides to help with remembering, recalling tasks that they need to complete or key information that's been shared. Let's have a look at what the Doc Reader looks like in the DocsPlus app now for iPad or Chromebook. Okay. So I've opened up the app now. And you can see up here at the top of the screen, we've got 3 tabs. We've got the document, the workspace, and the doc reader. So I've already opened up a document on push and pull migration. And to open a document in the app, again, we're going to go to the folder icon up in the top left of the screen. And then we would choose My Files. And when you choose My Files, it will open up the File Explorer for the device that you're using. So for Chromebooks, it will open up the Chromebook File Explorer where you can access your Google Drive. iPads, it would open up the Files app for you to navigate through the files you've got saved there. It then works the same as on PC. We're going to highlight some text, go to the Read button in the top toolbar.
Migration is the movement of people.
And it will then read that text out. And we've got the same voice on PC and in the apps. So if students are moving between devices, we've got that consistency. Okay. This particular document, we've got some questions towards the end, which we might then want to answer in the document. So in the app, we can go to that document tab, and we can then start responding to those questions. If I just jump back to PC now, so talking of responding to questions, if I go back to my File Explorer, and this time I'm going to open up Romeo and Juliet example question. So this is something I put together in a similar style to kind of GCSE essay questions. We've got some introductory text, we've got an excerpt, and we've got our question down here at the bottom of the screen. So again, we might want to highlight that question to listen through, start thinking about some responses.
Starting with the above extract, explore the theme of fate versus free will in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, we won't listen to all of the detail there. If we were using this as a practice question, we're now probably going to want to start thinking about how we're going to organise our response. And because this is a practice question, we can still get to our full play in the other tab. So I've got 2 tabs open down here at the bottom of the screen now, and I've got a document tab. So I can then access my document to start writing my responses. On PC, I've got an additional option. I can go to this icon just here in the top right. This is called Split View. And this then allows me to view the question at the same time as writing my response in the document. Okay, so we talked about planning out our ideas, and we might do that using a workspace. So I'm going to create a workspace now to start plotting out a few ideas. But we do have lots of pre-made templates available, and we'll have a look at some of those in a little bit. So to create a new workspace, I'm going to go to Smart tab up at the top of the screen and then choose New. I've got word bar options at the moment, but we'll choose the Workspace tab. And you can see we've got a few simple templates here that we could use to get started. For comparing fate versus free will in Romeo and Juliet, I'm going to choose this hierarchy option. Okay. So we're only comparing 2 elements, fate and free will. So we don't need a 3rd column. So I'm going to just highlight all of those boxes, those cells, and delete them. I can then double click into a cell to start typing. So let's put in a title, fate versus free will. We could probably expand on that in Romeo and Juliet if we were a student filling this in. And then we can start to fill in some details. So in terms of fate, we've got the fact that there's a lot of foreshadowing. Ooh, writing fate instead of foreshadowing there. There's a lot of foreshadowing at the start. We know in the prologue how the play is going to end. It talks about star-crossed lovers. It talks about death marked. So we're getting a lot of information at the start that implies that the end of the story is already decided. There's also the fact that both the main characters are from different families who have that ancient grudge. They couldn't help the families that they were born into. So that's another argument in terms of fate. Thinking of free will, We've got the decisions that the characters make throughout the play, both good and bad decisions, but they're making those decisions. So that's an argument for free will. Okay. So you'll notice as I'm filling in this vocabulary, I am talking around the topic a little bit and adding more detail. And I'm sure a lot of the students you work with work in a similar way. They are better sometimes at explaining their ideas orally before getting them written down. And we can capture those ideas using the workspace. So you'll see here on the left, we've got a microphone icon just here. And I'm going to drag this onto my workspace now. I'm going to add in a few. Okay. We can then double click these microphone buttons to make an audio recording in our workspace. So a quick example, right at the start of the play, we know how it will end. Okay, just a very quick example there. Once we've finished creating our voice note, the icon changes to show that we have a recording there. We can then either click it to hear that recording played back, or we can double click if we need to re-record. Okay, so that's a quick look at creating a workspace on PC. If we just go back to the app now, okay, and we saw earlier that workspace tab. So if we choose that one now, you can see I've got a workspace already opened. This is one from Learning Grids, that bank of resources I mentioned earlier, looking at push and pull factors for different types of migration. So this works in the same way as it did on PC. I can double click or double tap in those cells to start writing and filling in detail. And if I wanted to, I can also add those voice notes. So again, I can drag those into my workspace. Rather than double clicking or double tapping to make a recording, we instead select the microphone icon and then go to the microphone icon in the top toolbar, and we can then make our recording. Okay. If we wanted to create a new workspace in the app, we would go to this menu just here. Okay, and we can then save our workspace. We can send it into the document in a few different ways. We can create a new workspace, and we've got those same templates available to us. And we can create a word bar. So this is great for bridging the gap between planning a piece of writing and then producing that writing. So you can see all of that vocabulary that I had in my mind map, in my visual organizer, is now available to me beneath my document. We can do that on PC as well. It's a similar process. So if I just pop back there, this time we're going to go to the kind of box icon with the arrow, and I can send my document in, send my workspace into my document as a diagram or as text, or I can turn it into a word bar. And again, all of my vocabulary is now available here for me to use in my writing. Now, these that I've created, they're quite simple word bars, but we do have some that have already been pre-made, ready for you to use in Learning Grids, as I mentioned earlier. So to find Learning Grids, we're going to go to that folder icon again to open up our file explorer, and then choose Learning Grids resources. Okay, so here we have over 1,350 resources ready for you to use, covering lots of different subject and topic areas. So for Romeo and Juliet, we might want to type in Romeo and Juliet in our search bar, or we can go to the English literature subject area. There is a Shakespeare category with Romeo and Juliet as a topic. So this might be something that you direct students to have a look and see what resources are available that would help them. Or you might choose to go through and identify resources in advance to then share with them to use. So we've got a combination of works bars and word bars available here. And you can see they're labeled just above that open button. So we've got some other workspaces here. If we just open up one on Romeo now. So here we can fill in some details about his personality, that he's brave, perhaps that he's chivalrous. Been cut off my see that. Didn't press it hard enough. Chivalrous. There we go. We can fill in some information about his actions throughout the play, and copy in some key quotes that we can use as part of our evidence in our essay. In the DocsPlus app, we've got those same resources. So we would go to the folder icon again, and you can see learning grids is an option just here. This time we'll have a look in geography, but we've got those same 1,352 resources. For migration, we'll go into the population topic, and we've got 10 resources here that we could use. So you can see the workspace that I've currently got open. We've got some looking at advantages and disadvantages, and we've got word bars as well. Okay. I've mentioned word bars, and we've seen a couple now. Let's have a look at using it to produce our response. So going back to our example question, fate versus free will. So if we go back to Romeo and Juliet in learning grids now, and scroll down a little, we've got a few different word bars, one focusing on the different characters. We've got one here with lots of key vocabulary organized alphabetically, looking at blame, but we're going to take this themes word bar. Okay. So here we've got key vocabulary for writing about different themes in Romeo and Juliet, and we can move between those themes with these tabs. And we've got fate as a theme. Now, the great thing about word bars is we can right-click the vocabulary offered.
Inauspicious stars.
Hear it read out. And when we click any of these words or phrases, they'll jump into the document. So it's a great way of encouraging students to practice using this really key vocabulary. Again, before we start writing, thinking about planning, organising our ideas first of all. We saw voice notes in the workspace. We can also access voice notes in the document. So to do that, we go to the microphone icon in our document ribbon, and we've got that same sound recorder option. So the first thing I'm going to do is record a bit of a reminder of the task that I've been asked to complete. So I can check that whenever I need to. So explore the theme of fate versus free will in Romeo and Juliet. So just a quick recording there. If I stumble over my words, if I change my mind about what I want to write about or pick a different task perhaps, I can re-record as many times as I need to. And when I choose done, my recording then sits over here to the left of my document as this red speech bubble. I can then click it whenever I need a reminder of what I've recorded in that voice note. Let's think now about the content of my essay. So we'll make another recording now. The end of the play is revealed in the prologue by the chorus. So we'll do that. And now we've got another voice note here in a different color. So it's color coded. As I scroll down the page, so if I'm writing a long essay, you can see my voice notes stay in the same position. So I've always got them to refer back to. I can have up to 6 of those in a document, and each one will hold up to a minute of recording. So let's start typing into my document now. Let's make a start on our essay. So the end of the play is revealed at the start, and end my sentence.
The end of the play is revealed at the start.
Okay, so whenever we end a sentence in DocsPlus, it's going to read that sentence back for us, and this is the same in the app as well. It will always read that sentence back for us by default, so we can make sure that our sentence makes sense, that we've included the information we wanted to include, that we haven't missed out any words perhaps. And we can also hear sometimes if we haven't quite spelt a word correctly. And you can see I've also got that familiar red underline to show us where we've gone wrong. I can then right-click on my misspelling, and I've got my list of suggestions. Now, for students with dyslexia, it might be quite challenging to know which of those suggestions is the correct option. So with DocsPlus, we can access the speech support in the spell check as well. And to do that, we can right-click the suggestions.
Revealed. relieved,
And we can
revealed.
check that we've got the right word to make the correction, and then click it to make that correction in the document. We also have a predictor available, which we can turn on with this icon just here. Okay, and you can see it's already offering me some words that I could use to start my next sentence. That's a setting that we can change if it's not suitable for the learner, for the student. We might want to have it so that it will only offer words when we start typing. We might want it to offer more complex vocabulary or simpler vocabulary. We've got a lot of settings that we can adjust with the predictor. Okay, so let's carry on writing here. So the title characters. Okay, so I haven't quite spelt the word correctly, but again, it's still offered in the predictor. Fate is revealed. There we go. So a word I'm potentially struggling with is still here, or perhaps instead of revealed, we want foreshadowed. And because that's a word that's offered in our word bar, it's also appearing in our predictor. So by the chorus. Okay, so again, we've had a go at sounding that word out. It's not quite phonetically plausible, but the predictor is still helping us with that vocabulary. Okay. So I mentioned that we can change the settings to better suit individual students' requirements. And to do that on PC, we're going to go to Options up at the top of the screen. And you can see the different things that we can change in DocsPlus. So for example, in speech, we can change when DocsPlus speaks, the default voice we're using and how fast the voice speaks. We can make those changes I mentioned to the predictor here, so we can make the vocabulary offered more challenging or simpler. We can show more words at a time and display longer words. This suggest next word option means that so while it's ticked, means that the predictor is offering us words before we start typing, but we can uncheck that one. We can change the settings for our spell check, and we can change the settings for display. So if you're working with a student who uses a coloured overlay, for example, we can replicate that effect here. So we might want a pale blue background with a dark blue font, for example. So that's affecting my document, but I can also change that for the predictor and the spell check and for my resources, so for my word bars and my workspaces. And I can change the font style. So we've got Calibri as our default, but you can pick any standard font here and the dyslexia font, which some students find helpful for accessing text. So let's just change all of that. You'll note this is only affecting new documents, so it won't affect the font for the documents I'm currently working with. Okay, so all of those changes have now taken effect. As I mentioned, the font has stayed the same because it's only going to affect new documents. But if I want to change the fonts for the text I've already got, in my document options, if I go to this icon here, I can then change the font for the documents I'm currently working in, like so. If we just jump across to the DocsPlus app, just to show you those same features very quickly. So we've got the predictor icon available in our top toolbar. And in DocsPlus, that will then sit above either your word bar, if you have one open, or iPad users, it will sit above your on-screen keyboard. Okay. You can also create voice notes in the document, in the DocsPlus app. So we can make that recording in the same way we saw earlier, and we can then listen to those recordings. And if we misspell a word, so let's just use revealed again. Okay. We've got that red underline. We can click or tap our misspelt word and choose the correction we need from our spell check, which sits in the same place as our predictor. Okay, we are now coming to the end of the webinar. If you do need to leave, that's absolutely fine. When you do leave the webinar, a survey will open in your browser. We'd really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes to fill that in so we can continue to offer high quality webinars. If you do have a couple more minutes, I'm going to show a few key areas on our website. And if you still have questions, please do continue to ask them in the Q&A. Okay. So I'm just going to open up my internet browser now. And this is our website, cricksoft.com. And the first place I recommend having a look is our blog. Okay, so a lot of our staff, including myself, are ex-teachers, and we regularly put together blog posts with suggestions for different ways you might want to use DocsPlus in your classroom. So you can see recently we've had a Getting Started with DocsPlus webinar where we've summarised that information in this blog post. So if you're not familiar with DocsPlus, that might be a really good one to go back to. And it's worth checking in on the blog maybe once a month, once a term, to see what's new. I'd also recommend having a look in the training resources area. Make sure to choose DocsPlus. So here we've got a Get Started section, which looks at key features in DocsPlus, accessing learning grids, and it gives you installation information. We've got lots of tutorials. So if you want to have a go at creating any of these resources for yourselves or practice using the doc reader, we've got tutorials on all of those features, on saving and sharing, on adjusting the settings, and we've got a training guide that you can download. A particularly useful area, DocsPlus for students. So for every feature in DocsPlus, we've got a short description of what that feature is for, and a short video for students showing how that feature works. So it's a great way to make sure your students are feeling confident in using different features in DocsPlus. We run these webinars throughout the school year. You can see what other webinars we're running in the live webinars section. So we've got DocsPlus and Conflict in the 20th Century coming up soon. And our summer term webinars will be available in the next few weeks. Lastly, if you use Facebook at all, I always recommend joining our DocsPlus community. It's a great community to be a part of. We regularly share upcoming webinars, webinar recordings, useful resources, interesting blog posts. But if you have any questions, you can also post them here, and either somebody from the DocsPlus team or somebody who's using DocsPlus for themselves will be there to help you out and answer your questions. I'm just going to put our contact information on the screen again in case anybody wants to make a note of it. If you do still have questions, please do continue to ask them in the chat. But if not, I hope you'll have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you for joining me.